Are you struggling to get out of your corporate 9-to-5 and enter into the freelance online space? If you are struggling to make the transition, or you're apprehensive as to if the transition will even work for you, then today's video is going to be jam-packed, full of golden nuggets, all about how you can make a successful transition from your corporate 9-to-5 to the online digital space. And if you stay with me to the end of this video, I'm gonna be sharing a really awesome resource that's gonna help you make your transition even faster. Hey there, I'm Sarah Noked. I am the founder of the Online Business Management School, and I teach people just like you how to start and scale successful, profitable, online service-based businesses by landing the right clients and confidently charging the rates that will empower you to live life by your own design. Now, in today's video, I want to get right into how you can successfully transition out of your corporate 9-to-5 to the online freelance world. And I'm going to be doing that by highlighting how my own journey led me to come to the understanding that there are a lot of things that you can take from corporate to help you build a successful business as an online business manager specifically, but also just in the freelance space. So if you're wanting to make the transition from your corporate 9-to-5 to the online space, whether you want to be an online business manager or a virtual assistant or some other kind of service support professional, I want to highlight today some of the steps that you can take to make this transition really work for you. Now, when I was making the transition, it actually took me 2 whole years. I started in 2009 making my transition until I ultimately was fully employed by myself as a freelancer working as an online business manager. So I am not going to sugarcoat this. I'm not going to tell you that it happens overnight. It took me 2 entire years to make the transition. Today, I want to share some tips and tricks that I wish I would have known when I was transitioning. First tip that I want to share is this notion of transferable skills. Now, this is going to be specifically geared to online business managers, but I want you to know that you can absolutely apply these skills in different areas in the online space. I'm just speaking primarily to online business managers because that's what I know, that's what I love. So when it comes to transferable skills, there are a few big ones. The first one being communication. Communication was hands down what I learned best in my corporate job. When I was in corporate, I worked as a business development accounts manager for our franchisees. It was a big company with a lot of franchisees worldwide, and I was responsible for managing a region of clients on behalf of the company. And through that job, I really learned to hone my communication skills, and I bet a lot of you listening today can relate to that. I learned all about how to successfully communicate by email, how to give a presentation, how to communicate to my team, how to communicate as well to third parties like contractors and tradespeople that I needed to deal with in the business. So communication is definitely one of those skills that we really leverage as an online business manager. I want to really emphasize this because working as an OBM, you are primarily working in a virtual space, right? You know, we're not usually even in the same city as our clients, let alone being in the same country as our clients. I have had clients all over the world, so we're not necessarily in the same country. We need to really learn how to communicate effectively in a virtual space. So when I went from communication in corporate to communication in an online sense, it just sort of ramped up my need for having to even further refine my communication skills, because when you are communicating online, you have to be very clear. I can't just go and like knock on Sally's door in my office and be like, hey Sally, I know we had the meeting earlier today and I mentioned X, Y, and Z, but really I meant this. You know, you're working on things like Slack for communication and project management tools to communicate and email and other means of communication. You have to be spot on your communication game. You need to be clear, you need to be concise. So this is definitely a skill that I took with me from my corporate job that transitioned very nicely into my role as an online business manager. Now, the next really transferable skill is project management. Project management is definitely a skill that I honed in my corporate job. Although we did not use a project management tool or anything like that, I was still responsible for making sure that we were meeting our targets and meeting our project goals. There were events that we planned. And along with that project management piece, also comes a lot of these, trickles into a lot of these other things like managing a budget. We had an events budget that we managed. We were also managing delegation and sub-trades. There were people that I was communicating with to make sure that projects were moving along nicely. And there was also a lot of other facets of projects like research and market research that really helped me to further hone my project management skills. Even in our OBM school, in our paid programs, I speak with students all the time who are coming from backgrounds as executive assistants in corporate and backgrounds as project managers in corporate, and even like accountants and account managers and people in finance. Like our OBM world really is quite large and vast and very much bringing in skills from different areas and different arenas. And what I know to be true is like project management is definitely at the core of the OBM role. And a lot of us bring that in from our corporate job or bring in aspects of it. Like you might have aspects of like event planning or aspects of, managing smaller projects or perhaps managing one person on a team. All of this stuff really lends to the OBM role. It really lends to that confidence that you build that comes from doing. So I really want you to embrace these transferable skills that you have, that you've developed in your corporate 9-to-5 and really recognize that, wow, these are just things that I will continue to hone and develop as I embark on my journey as an online business manager. The next big transferable skill is skills around technology. Now, even though I was back in corporate, it was almost 10 years ago, we were still using online conferencing tools. And this is what actually kind of exploded my brain around the whole notion of working online, because most of my clients in my corporate job were based in Germany. So I was actually already working online. I was doing a lot of conference calls overseas. I was having to travel a lot, which wasn't so much fun. It really helped me to understand the technology around communicating in an online sense. And that's something we all use these days, especially if you're in corporate now. You're definitely using Zoom. Understanding the technology and how it works is definitely going to help you adapt better as an online business manager. And to further this idea of technology is this bigger idea of, things like customer relationship management systems and, different kinds of software that you probably have experienced in your corporate job. But even being somewhat familiar with that technology, maybe you use it to a certain extent, that's actually going to be very beneficial, because as online business managers, we're definitely wanting to leverage tools like a customer relationship management, project management software. There are all of these SaaS products that service as a software, SaaS products that we leverage online that I think are really intimidating for people that are first starting off as an OBM. But when we think back to some of the things that we do in corporate, like we're using some of these things in corporate. I definitely used Salesforce when I worked in corporate. We used Cisco, which is now more like Zoom. And there were other tools that came about that I used in corporate that really helped me to be less tech phobic and more wanting to acquire new information about the technology piece. So, even having a little bit of technology know-how is going to really help you, because I really believe that, here we are in YouTube right now. YouTube, there's a tech tutorial for everything. And most of these SaaS products usually have tutorials that these software producers create so that they make it very easy for users to use. That's a little love nugget for you so that you don't have to worry so much about adapting the tech. Everything is figure-outable, to quote Marie Forleo, I do love her, and technology is no exception. Everything is figure-outable. Having a little bit of tech know-how is definitely going to help to make that smooth transition. The next big transferable skill that you will acquire in your corporate job, for better or for worse, are systems. I love standard operating procedures. I talk a lot about standard operating procedures. I love teaching my students about standard operating procedures. Actually, in our OBM school, we have a whole systems vault of SOPs that we give to our students to leverage with their clients, because there is nothing better than a systematized business. And as online business managers, we are very much geared on building systems and structures and helping to streamline our clients' businesses so that they can hire team and expand and scale and all that good stuff. And to be quite frank, my love for systems definitely started in corporate. Now, I know not everybody loves systems in corporate, but I really loved starting to get the systems going. I don't feel that everybody always used the systems, and it drove me crazy because it was quite a big corporation. But what I did learn was the power of standardizing and systematizing and documenting things. And I definitely took that with me as I started to really step into my OBM groove and really start to understand how I wanted to work with clients. I wanted to make systems part of the very foundation of how we work with clients, and that is definitely what we teach in our paid programs in the OBM school. So if you are looking to be an OBM and want more training and more information, I will leave some links below so that you can learn more about OBM school. But systems are definitely one of those things that we come across, we learn about in corporate. Most corporations have some sort of database of different documentations and operating procedures. Now, whether or not people use them, unfortunately, is usually the reality, but I loved systems in my corporate job, and I definitely carried that through with me to being an online business manager. And so you definitely want to leverage that as a transferable skill from your corporate job. So we've highlighted 4 very transferable skills that you can leverage from corporate as you make your transition to the online space. I don't want to stop there. I want to actually remind you of a few other key pieces of information that you need to remember when you are making the transition. One is that you need to come up with a financial plan. So when I'm teaching my students in the OBM school, we really emphasize coming up with a financial plan, because I do not ever want any of my students to be in this situation where, they've gotten themselves into a bind and, unfortunately have to go back to a corporate job because the entrepreneurial thing didn't work for them. So in order to mitigate that, we definitely have a system in place to calculate the financials, and that's what we offer inside of our paid programs to help you make that transition. But what I will say here is that you want to be having 3 to 6 months of your expenses on the side so that you can fully give it your all when you are making the transition. So that's the first thing. And then the other sort of piece of that puzzle is a lot of our students that come into the OBM school, they haven't even necessarily left their corporate job yet. There's this transition. I mentioned my transition was 2 years. I mean, that's a long time, but I'm hoping that through the learning and the training that you make a faster transition. But regardless, you are on your own timeline. We all have different factors that we have to weigh out in our lives. I've got little kids, even though I didn't back then. I got little kids now. So if I were starting my business today, it would look a lot different than when I started my business when I didn't have kids. Just like if I had a corporate job that I had been in for 10 or 15 years, it would look a lot different than being in my corporate job for 2 or 3 years. So there are different factors that weigh into place here, but I want you to remember that your plan is customized to you, and it is not one size fits all, and it has to do with you leaving your corporate job and you having enough money aside to have a little bit of a security net if things take a little bit longer to get rolling. And then the other piece of the financial puzzle is, look, you might have to not go out for dinner once a week for a couple months in order to save up a little bit more cash. So you want to, you definitely have to make sacrifices when you are moving on to the online space and building a business for yourself. And for me, it was like a sacrifice that paid off, and I'm so happy that I did it when I did it. There's a lot that's sort of standing in the way of you and making that transition because of the planning and the financial. So I really want you to spend some time thinking about how to get a little bit more resourceful with the finances, and also getting a little bit thrifty with putting a little bit of money on the side so that you can safely make the transition. If you stayed till this point of the video, then I've got a really juicy tidbit for you, and it's not the freebie. I'll share that in a second. This is actually a tip that I realized in teaching my students that this was definitely something that could be leveraged. So when you're in corporate, you're making a lot of great connections, and actually a lot of the students in our programs, they will make their corporate connections work for them to find even their first client. But what I want you to remember here is when we're thinking about the transferable skills that you can take with you into your OBM role, don't forget that a lot of those transferable skills that you honed in your corporate job are testimonialized. Did I just create a word? I think I did. But you can actually leverage your corporate connections to give you testimonial on those specific transferable skills. So if Sally was my colleague and we were planning out the events together and managing things, I could have her create a testimonial for me about how I was able to manage projects with poise and hit deadlines and be really conservative with the budget, and whatever that looks like, Sally can write me a testimonial. This is a really beautiful thing because I think that so often we're like, oh, my corporate life, my corporate past life, I can't use any of that. But when in reality, you've got great testimonials, you've got great contacts and connections there. Leverage all of those beautiful things. Now, if you've stayed with me until this point in the video, that's awesome. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do hit subscribe and click that little bell to be notified when we drop a new video every single week. And for those of you who are wanting to make this transition smoothly and seamlessly, I've got my OBM starter kit for you. I'm gonna leave the resource below this video. This starter kit is jam-packed with all my tips and tricks on how to successfully learn more about the online business management role, become an online business manager, and really set yourself up for success. So you definitely wanna download that freebie. I hope to see you next week when we drop a new video. I'll see you then.